talk to yourself. Heat in the body, and then it moves on to asana, pranayama, and then concentration, meditation, and then bliss. So there's and it's not linear. It's not like you're doing that and it's just, you're going to get from one to the next. It's just a constant, almost like like a nautilus kind of image of like, it's just going round and round and round and round. So, the cycle of like, yes, self-study now, asana now, pranayama now, meditation now, focus now. So it's just, you're always evolving in that way, going up and down. Yeah. It's amazing. It's brilliantly it's the science of it is so beautiful, of yoga. Yeah. Studying that part of it. I think you'd really enjoy that. I don't know.
I do.
Yeah. Do you, have you read a lot about the 8 limbs? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to Krista's shop a number of times. Yeah. She's supposed to come on sometime soon.
You should totally do that.
Yeah.
Oh, she'd be a wealth of information.
Yeah. You could talk to her for 3 hours.
You could.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah.
About everything.
We were going to do it last Friday, but her childcare fell through, unfortunately. Yeah. It's important. But yeah, it's and speaking of important things, I think that because I think the Greeks were the ones who believed that humans were playthings of the gods, and that so they had like a god of rage or a god of bliss or music, whatever the case may be, and that you literally were, when someone loses themselves in a tantrum, it's like, oh, Aries just took you over and you weren't yours anymore, and you were just under the influence. They were like naming the emotions and considered them like personalities and would anthropomorphize our emotional experiences. And I think it's key, and for that reason, that if there is something more to us, if we're either getting pulled in these directions all the time by our emotions, it seems like yoga is a way of cultivating and refining and like amplifying that part of us that's soaring above all those things, like the higher consciousness that's watching above all those things. And then eventually you start to be like, I'm feeling this welling up inside me, might not be the best to act on this. If you're having an argument with someone, maybe time to put a pin in it before it gets too crazy, or like, but just that awareness.
So good. You gotta be able to listen. Yeah. Like really be a good listener. I haven't always been a good listener. You know what I mean? Really reactive. I used to be so reactive. And just like jump right in front of it. You know what I mean? It's taken, I'm still working with it, but it's like, it takes years to then see yourself in it. Like you said, like sort of float above yourself. It's like in a nidra when you're floating above your body and you're like, look at that. Because you really are 99% energy, 1% physical. It's like the practice, 99% practice, 1% theory, right? I was thinking about that the other day, the correlation of that. Like what if we really are 99% energetic, How do we know? I'd like to believe that. So that this physical body, but most of us is just sort of like, it's like we're all playing with each other up here in these energetic bodies, but we chose this body. Here we are, this vehicle that we're in right now, and it's like, okay, we're here to be joyful though, and to have experiences and to like notice.
I like those ideas a lot. The only thing is that I get concerned that there can be a detrimental devaluation of the physical experience. Right. I think that should be tempered in with those ideas because it seems self-evident that there's more going on than what we can accurately explain and prove, because people pick up on these subtle cues with each other, that thing we mentioned earlier with the eye contact, and then there's that whole other thing of you guys both kind of explained having a voice in your head telling you either do this or don't do this, or maybe it's just a feeling, or maybe it's an image. It's like the conscience everyone has, and if you don't taint yours by doing too many misdeeds, then it can be a reliable beacon. And when I have experiences along those lines, for me it's like for whatever reason that I can't even explain a lot of the time, whatever I'm doing now doesn't feel right, and it feels like I'm getting twisted up on the inside the more I head down this direction. It's like you're going off the highway or hitting a rumble strip or something, and then you have to, and then there's just that voice, and a lot of times meditation is great for that, because you can actually sit there and be like, okay, I'm not even going to try and think, I'm just going to let these thoughts come into my head and go, and just watch my mind. And sometimes there's that theme that recurs, and it could be a voice or an idea, and it's like, you have to go this way, and it's not up to you. And so then you have to take that leap of faith, which is following that voice, and it's like, okay, and then...
I love what you said about the beacon. So smart. This is true. It's like you're just... putting it out there and going with it. But you're, you're noticing though. That's the difference, is that you're slowing down enough to hear the messages of where that road is going or taking you. What feels good? Does it resonate with you, right? I think that's what you're trying to say, is that sometimes things don't resonate with you.
I feel like for me, it's like
It's a
if it gets
physical
bad enough, it can feel.
It's a physical thing.
Physical
Totally.
is a huge
Oh my
part of
God,
it, because we are in these bodies, so it is physical, absolutely, because it's sending us our messages all the time. And I say that in yoga all the time. It's like the body doesn't lie, so like really listen to the feedback. It's immediate and it's so truthful, because there's no way you can get around it. Like I should have stopped running on the beach the first moment my heels started hurting, but I was super competitive in that moment. I was like, my ego took over. I was like, I want to win this sprint, and I watched it. I was even aware of it, like I could see it happening, and I still did it. So sometimes you just have to learn experientially. I'm kind of one of those learners too. It's like, oh yes, well there was a bigger message behind this actually. There's so much more I needed to get from this. It's taken me down a whole other path. So it's like, so part of me didn't listen, but it was also like really valuable, the injury. Like, and especially as a yoga teacher, it's like so good sometimes to get injured. I hate to say that, but when you do get injured, you have so much compassion and understanding of your students, so you'll never think of it the same way again. Like a hamstring injury, I've pulled a hamstring, I've hurt my heel, like hips, shoulders, like, you want to kind of go to that place of, I used to have a teacher who was like perfect, her little practice was perfect, there was nothing wrong, she never had an injury, and she used to also she would demonstrate in class all the time too. So that was always a little confusing, because, you and I don't teach from that place, we don't demonstrate, it's always just walking, observing, walking, which I think is so good, obviously, but so you just can get lost in your own physical practice. That's maybe I've gone on topic, but
no, it's so true. I think a lot of people are like when I started yoga, I was not spiritually or emotionally called to the practice. I started getting injured, and my body was like, no, something else.
Totally.
So and I think for a lot of people, yoga will remain a strictly physical practice for a very long time. And that's really important, because people live outside of their bodies all the time. We ask people to listen to their bodies, and people are like, what does that even mean?
Right.
I haven't listened to my body for years. My gut's been telling me to leave my husband and leave my job and make a change. And
I don't want to listen to that.
My full-time job has been to repress that gut feeling. I don't want to listen to that. So giving people a space to connect to their body and what they're feeling is like, it's so huge. It's so huge. And then everything else maybe comes after that, and that's like a bonus.
I think it's just a conduit, like the body. When you touch into the body like that, the way we do in yoga, then it's like, it gives you access to this other part of you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so I think the body is the vehicle. That is the way. It's our only way. Here, do you know what I mean? Like, meditation, but you're still in your body while you're meditating. You're still getting those thoughts and emotions while you're meditating. So it's not at all discounting it whatsoever. It's a huge part. But I think that literally we're probably made up of a lot more than that.
Well, for me, the fact
it's the most visible part of us.
Yeah.
It's tangible.
Yeah, because I feel like my own experience is that I can't sufficiently do a good enough job for myself to convince myself that there's a separation between my physical existence and my emotional and all these other things. I feel like I owe my life to like my physical body, and
literally.
And so to take care of that is to take care of yourself, because it's like you're I'm trying to avoid being too cliche, but it's like your spiritual dwelling place,
It's the vehicle. Yeah, I guess in yoga we call it that, right? It's your temple. They call it the temple. So you have to take care of this
and
one temple.
It's the only thing you actually have until you lose that too. But
your breath and your body. I mean, until you lose those, then you are in this physical being, very tangible.
And this is why I love yoga, and I think it's why yoga was able to proliferate so well in the West compared to any other kind of spiritual tradition from elsewhere. It's because it has this strictly embodied limb to it that's like so unlike other forms of exercise too. And for me, it's because I lift weights and I roof and I run and do all these things, and yoga is just this perfect thing to throw in my tool belt that helps me recover and heal, and it just
So smart. to be at your age, you know, to discover that at this age too. I mean, I work with a lot of young people and they do love it, but yeah, it's so nice to hear that.
I think it's just a product of the generation. Like, our access to information that I grew up with is ridiculous. You know, like being able to be aware of, you know, how bad the bad things for you actually are. It's like, you know, I don't know. I feel like maybe I am a little smart, but it's I owe a lot to.
Smart, Tara.
A little smart.
You're a lot smarter because I know a lot of people your age who are not at all, and you know.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
That's great, but you know, it's nice.
And it's one thing to avoid the bad things, but it's another thing to pursue the things that feed you. Like that's a very different.
Very evolved.
Yes, an evolved choice.
Yeah, very evolved.
Well, thank you.
So good. So good. You're so good. So great.
I'm kind of blanking right now in my head. I don't know if we got your story about teaching. We got the studio story, but was there were you teaching before you got to the studio, or
No.
it was all at once, eh?
No. Was I teaching before that I owned the studio?
Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I was, yeah. I don't know what you know what, when I decided I wanted to do the yoga teacher training, it was like whether or not I was going to teach was an actual conversation I had with my husband, because it was such a financial sacrifice to take my yoga teacher training. It was like, well, if you're going to take this training, you need to teach. And he made me make that decision right there. And it was really scary to make, because I was like, oh, I'm just going to do it for me and whatever. And he's like, well, do you really want to do it? Like, he asked me the hard questions, like, why do you want to do it? Are you going to teach? I was like, oh my God. And I was like, yeah. It was really clear. I was like, yes, I am going to teach. He's like, okay, you need to teach at least twice a week to make this up for the next year. And I'm like, okay, no problem. I'm going to do it. So it was never, I went into my teacher training knowing that I was going to teach, and it was just it.
So clear.
It was, but he asked me that's sort of like been his role in my life too, to sort of challenge me in that way.
You're a good mix of masculine, feminine energy, you two. It's good.
He and I?
Yeah.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have a masculine energy too.
That's okay.
And he has a feminine energy as
But
well.
it's nice. You can mix them together. Like it's still this balance. This works, you know.
Yeah, no, it definitely works, yeah. And he came along very shortly after I was into my yoga practice too. And that was very challenging. Because I was in this like sort of state where like I was really into my yoga, which made me like sort of rethink everything, all of these patterns that were happening in my life. And then I meet this guy who I'm like, oh my God, he's different. And I feel very differently about him. And he's challenging me in ways I've never been challenged before. And my old patterns would be to like A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Yeah. Like shut down, walk away.
Right, shut down, walk away, fight.
Fight.
All of that stuff. Like so confrontational. And then I feel like yoga is a huge part of the reason why it worked.
But you manifested him at that time, which was amazing because you were ready. You know what I mean?
I
like
guess
you don't match up.
He was ready too.
That's what I mean. Like there's a match, right? And it happens. I'm waiting. It's like I gotta get up maybe like to another. Yeah, it's interesting the people we match up with though.
Yeah, the people that you end up being around is it's so strange. It's it's hard to make any sense of, and not that because you can kind of make sense of things to death sometimes. But I mean, even I found myself just coming back from traveling and looking for a job, and then just wound up doing snow removal with the company I'm working for now, and like. Just the people that I've met and the coworkers I've been able to share every day with over the past little more than a year, it's been like they're all just a bunch of young surfer guys who traveled a whole bunch of places and
So you
done
just
a lot
are
of cool things.
aligning.
Yeah, just a lot of other young guys who love to get into deep conversations like this and
It's so nice.
yeah, 24.
We had this discussion in front of the yoga studio because somebody came in and they're like, you gotta be in your 30s. I'm like, no, I'm 45. She's like, oh my God. And then I asked somebody how old they were. They were 29. I'm like, oh my God. Like, you just don't know.
No.
Like, I thought she was
yeah.
older. They thought I was so much younger. I was like, I'll take that compliment any day.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's really interesting because, anyway, I don't know if I should get into this here, but.
You started talking a lot quieter as soon as
Yeah,
age came up.
age came up again. But just relationships, you know, it's like, it's funny because I attract a younger person usually, so because I feel younger, maybe, I don't know. Because I find also it's easier to talk to them because they're a little more